So welcome viewers to our discussion today. So today we are just going to be discussing one of the topics, one of the topics that we have been um, looking at before, but we haven't discussed it in the open. But everything we discuss here is just about Nigeria's development. And today we'll be looking at something that particularly disturbs me. The rot I see in the local government system in Nigeria. Our local governments are not living up to their responsibilities. If you've lived in any other part of the world, you would actually see that local governments do a lot for their people, especially in terms of grassroots development. And if you also lived in Nigeria earlier in the early 80s, 90s, you would see that the local governments were doing a lot. But what we have today is that what I would call the abuse of the local government system, a situation whereby the local governments have now been pocketed by the state governors, and they don't hold elections. Their revenues are managed by them via LGA chairmen, and you don't see the local government being productive in any way. So today I have with me on the show Mr. Stanley, who works for a local government in England, and he's a manager and has worked in many branches of the local government. We have Dr. Chris Chikere, who is a passionate Nigerian, passionate about Nigeria's development. We have Barrister Nwosu, who many of you know, who is one of the presidential aspirants in the last Nigerian election. And we have Mr. Lawrence Obewe, who is a LGA reform specialist based in Kaduna State. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off with you, Barrister Nwosu. What do you think is the reason why we have this rot that we have in our local government system today, that the local governments are no longer productive, they no longer do anything for our people?
Yeah, thank you very much, Eke. First of all, what we need to understand is we have in Nigeria, we have, like so many other nations, we have a three-tier system. We have the federal, the state, and the local government. Now, the local government, it's meant to bring the government closer to the people. That is the focus of why we have a local government. Is as a third tier of government. It's supposed to provide closeness to the people so that the people can feel the impact. Now, the local government has many functions to do. They have roads they can do, they have health, they have primary education that they usually take care of and all that. But the problem is not with the laws setting up the local government. It's in the practice, it's in the execution of these laws. The state governments have been able to hijack the local governments. Instead of holding elections, they appoint caretaker committee members who are more or less political appointees of the governor, and the governor have absolute control over them. Okay, there's been many attempts. If you call back, you remember when Algon, that's what they used to be called, I think, which is an association of local government in Nigeria. They've always fought, and that was when they were being elected. Recently, there was also the National Assembly made a law about the autonomy of the local government, but the governors have not held elections in. Even where they have held elections, I mean, it's more of a selective approach. So in this program, when we start talking about solutions, what should be done, I have solutions of what I think can work, but for now, the biggest problem the local governments are facing is the hijacking by the state governments, because the allocation of the local governments doesn't get to them. It gets to the state government, and the state government now gives them a little bit of it. I have life experience. I have friends who've been local government chairmen, and I know what, problems they had and all that. They couldn't execute any project because they can't even pay salaries, So that is the biggest problem we have.
Yeah, Barrister Wosa, I'm just going to ask you a follow-on question because I've spoken to a couple of lawyers. I've tried to read, I've tried to research this topic. And many schools of thought believe that why we have this problem in the local government system is because the law that sets up the local governments makes it in such a way that the local governments are not autonomous, that they are dependent on the state, or they are under the control of the state. Is that the case?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to point out. That unlike before, when we were a bit younger, when we talk about local government, when we had powerful local government chairmen, that was when local governments were autonomous. But even at that, recently the Senate tried to give back the autonomy to the local governments. But everything else in Nigeria is in the practice, So even if they have the autonomy, how are they able to do that with the system we have, with the state INEC, which is under the control of the state government? So these are all is a chain problem. There are things that needs to be removed for the local government to have autonomy. They have to take that power from state INEC. The power to control the state INEC has to be taken away from the state. The state INEC has to be independent, if at all they should exist. I don't see why we should have state INECs. It's like having a state police under a corrupt government.
Yeah.
So if we have a state INEC that could be autonomous, or the federal government, the federal INEC should be able to have branches in every state that should conduct local government election. That takes away the power, the absolute control of the local government from the governor, because you will see that in every state that have conducted election, the party of the governor returns 100% success because the state INEC is in their pocket. So it's not an election, it's a selection. And when a governor appoints you, and that governor has the power to dissolve a local government and appoint transitional chairman, that is a mess on its own, because he can take a palm wine tapper and make a transition chairman. So that is part of the problem. That is the biggest problem we have. The problem is your autonomy.
Barrister Wosa, I'll come back to you. Mr. Olewe, Mr. Obewe, I'm going to come to you now as someone who is local in the country and who has done a lot of work in local government systems. What do you see as the problem or the main reason why our local governments are no longer productive? While when we were younger, like I said, in the 80s, the 90s, the local governments were doing quite a lot. We had health centers. We had, I know at least at that time they were grading roads. You could have, my parents were teachers. They got paid by the local government. Their salaries as at when due. But none of these, happen anymore. And all you see now is people turn up on 20-something or 20s, maybe 30th of the month, collect salaries, and they walk away. So why do you think that we have this situation now in our local government system? Mr. Obewe, are you there? Can you unmute yourself, please? Mr. Obewe, are you with us? Okay, sorry, Chris, you can jump in and answer the question because you seem to know why we're in this. So, Chris, why do you think that we're in this situation whereby the local government system does not just work anymore? It used to work when we were younger.
Yes, I think, good evening, everybody.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Obewe, hold on. Chris, jump in.
I'm fine. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Chris, can you go ahead, please?
Yeah, I was just saying that we should again look at where we are coming from. And if we look at where we are coming from, you would see that the local government system in Nigeria has been a source of interest for politicians, okay, especially in a case where they think that, I mean, for every other Nigerian, for every other person, the local governments are supposed to be that part of governance that the common man sees. You know, for some of us who are living in the West, you have your local council. That's your first port of call. There are certain things that are done nationally. You know, you're talking about taxation, you're talking about some other things that the federal does, but the things like schools, things like local roads are done by the local councils. So for politicians, in the case of Nigeria, they have been, you know, this interest in local government governance for a very long time. And I will just give you an example of why I say that. You know, if you look at the reforms or local government reforms that have happened in Nigeria from 1976, you have the 1976 guidelines for local government reforms. You have the 1979 constitution that discussed the local government. You have one other one that was set up by the military called the 1984 Dasuki report on local government system. You in 1988 you had the civil service reforms of local government systems. In 1989 you had the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that also talked about local government. Then in 1992 you had a handbook of local government administration. In 1998 again the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria talked about the local government. Then the current constitution we have now that has been reviewed in 2003, that in 1999, the constitution came up. Then in 2003, there was a special review of local government councils in Nigeria. So you have this manipulation of that local governance by the politicians, just because, for example, if you have federal allocations or allocations to this local government, the politicians at the local level tend to use these local governments as their piggy banks, where they go and collect money and don't account for it. So for the small politician who is at the state, the local government is their piggy bank. As compared, you know, I mean, a state politician doesn't have any power at the central. So they tend to use local governments as their piggy bank, and whilst doing that to the detriment of the Nigerian people, while doing that to the detriment of the local people who looked at local government as their only source of governance. I mean, when Dasuki did his report, they actually, at that point, and this was when you were talking about in those days, the local governments were functioning as some quasi-independent governance body. But at the point in time, the new constitution from 1989, literally, they started tweaking things to hand over these local governments to governors who have just subsequently used it as their piggy bank. And that's what I can say for now.
Okay, thank you for that. We all know that, you know, I've taken time to look at what the Constitution says that the local government should do, and one of them is maintenance of law and other provision of motor parks. You have collection of rates, fees and rents, construction of feeder roads, which we could call trunk C roads, and drainages, provision of recreational facilities, provision of health facilities, registration of births, deaths, and marriages, provision of educational facilities. And I'm going to stress here, it says they fund primary schools by paying teachers' salaries and maintaining school buildings. enlightenment campaign, and so many other things, provision of social amenities, such as water, rural electrification, television viewing centers. So, in your opinion, Mr. Stanley Engineer, do you believe that our local governments in Nigeria today are doing any of this? Let's not, when those of us that live outside, when we come on programs like this, or when we write things, people tell us, oh, you want to import what are done outside and come and do them here in Nigeria. No, it wouldn't work here. I'm not reading from a book in the law of the United Kingdom or the law of Canada or the law of the Constitution of the United States. I'm reading from the provisions of the law that established the local government system in Nigeria, that local government should provide feeder routes, construct feeder routes, pay primary school teachers, provide social amenities. Do you think that our local governments are doing any of this today? And why, in your opinion, why is it that they are not doing any of those? Mr. Stanley, can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you for that question. I think the answer is no. Barrister in his wisdom was able to highlight where the problems are. I think the problem is about the independence of the local government, because the politicians, especially the state level, they have managed to reduce local government like a kind of a family meeting, because there's no more power. They have been in local authority in England for the past 12 years, and I've worked in different departments. So what I will pinpoint here is all about corruption, because it's not for the masses, it's for their own pockets. So if you cannot hold an election so that you have people who are politically elected people in position, then there's no form of accountability. Where I am in England here, the main statutory services that we provide, one is educational service, children and adult social care, waste collection, public health service, planning and housing, which is quite an issue, and road maintenance and library service. All these things we provide as a local authority, and we are accountable to the residents and the councillors. And each time elections are being conducted, so you are answerable to the councillors as a government officer. If I get a complaint as a manager from one of the councillors complaining about a resident, I have only 14 days to respond what I've done to mitigate the circumstances. So if I'm wanting, if they're not happy with my response, they go to ombudsman. But when it comes to Nigeria, the states have pocketed local government, and there is need for them to be separated completely. Barrister Engineer made a very, very important fact. And if we want to move away from the current situation we are in, we need to set up an independent or the federal electoral service to be the one to conduct the election, so that the local authority will be independent of the state, because it's three tiers of government. I know in England, the department that monitor what we do as the local government authorities, Department for Communities and Local Government, which is called in short from DCLG. But in the state, they dictate who goes in there. And the idea of the transition government, whatever it's called, is just nonsense, because they shouldn't be there. The people need to elect who have to be there to be their chairman or who will look after them, not the state handpicking and fire whenever they like. It's just like an apprentice, hire and fire. If you refuse to return money to the governors, they will fire you. So that is nonsense. When you go to the local government, you see nothing is being built. We here with few portals, we provide services. During the lockdown service, we were giving food to people who are shielding. We were knocking on doors to make sure that those vulnerable people are looked after, getting prescription for them. This is, I know, is on a high level, but that can be replicated back home. All we are doing is to emit it from abroad. But when the good side of it comes, people say, oh, you're living abroad. No, they are human beings. They're not better than us. We have the same common sense and created by God. The only thing that is killing us is selfishness and to pocket all the whole money that you cannot finish spending till you die. So we need to look at the ways, which is first of all, getting the foundation right to have an election, which the state will not have any part to play from the federal level so that it will not be controlled. Again, my fear is even if you take it to the federal level, the interest at the state can influence the ones at the middle, because look at what is going on in this. I know I'm moving, deviating, but the corruption, we need to get rid of that corruption and fraud practices before we can solve the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Enyine. Honestly, you've gone even further than I wanted you to go, because that was going to be a part of my later question, because like you just said, in Nigeria, whenever we copy the system, which is practiced all over the place, different tiers of government under different names. But whenever it gets to something that will be useful to our people, we now say, no, it can't be done in Nigeria, and that it's only done in the West. You're trying to replicate or import your system here. So I'm going to come back to you. Chimeza, you're going to have a chance to speak at some point. Barrister Nwosu, what do you think? What do you think? Because if you look at those in the National Assembly, the people that are retired to the National Assembly, it's still the same governors who don't hold elections, who don't see any need to hold elections. Because I use the word, I thought about it very, very well, abuse of the local government system, who have abused the system, who have refused to hold elections. From what we gathered, when allocations come, and I'm saying from what I know, so from somebody that has been a chairman before, when the money comes, they are assigned to you how much you're supposed to spend, and then normally before you used to be taking the salary in as cash, or the allocation as cash to return to them. But now that Buhari has done something wonderful and said, no, you can't withdraw more than 500,000 from the LGA's account every day. They've also devised other means to counteract that. Now that we have these guys who retired to the National Assembly, as governors, do you think there's any light to making or changing this lapse in the Constitution, which can now allow the local government to work on its own, or to be autonomous and deliver the dividends of democracy to our people?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like you rightly said, most of our governors, they retire to the Senate. But the main problem is about party supremacy and party control. Now, you will know that the local government is the grassroots. That is where the election is. That's where people are elected from. That is why people like Oshemole, a party chairman, can only be suspended from his ward, because that's where the whole thing starts from, constitutionally. Now, what is happening at the local government is political parties trying to secure the soul of the grassroots, which is the local government. Now, whichever party is in charge of a local government, that party already has 60% advantage over the other parties in any election. So that is the main reason why every party that is in power seeks the soul and control of the local government. Now, that translates to the Senate, the governor who turns out to be a senator after 4 years or 8 years. He is still a member of a political party. So at the party, what happens is, let's say the president is going to run an election in 2023. The governors go to the president to say, no, if you take away the local government from us, we will not have control of our state. It's about absolute control. So when the state governments are given the leeway based on the body language of the federal government or the National Assembly, because the National Assembly are members who have to go back to their local government to seek re-election. So in most cases, you see that they tend to align with the governors to have this control. Now you see that in a place like Abia State, where we have APC and we have PDP, you see that the PDP are in power now, so they have absolute control of the local governments. And now the APC will be shouting, no, there has to be an election in the local government. There has to be an independent election. There has to be a sincere election and all that. And if by 2023, APC gets into power in Abia State, APC would do the same thing. So it's not about the National Assembly passing laws. That's why I say it is about practice. It's about implementation of these laws. We have very good laws in Nigeria. Because like what you read out now, these are things that the local government should do. But they cannot do it because the law is bent in a way that it favors whoever is in power. But the major thing we have to understand, which is also the second biggest problem about the local governments, is the viability of what we call local governments and even states. Most states and local governments in Nigeria are not even viable. They shouldn't even be called a village. You understand? Now, this local, 744 local governments.
774, yeah.
Yes, as good as it sounds, is a waste of resources. Just like 36 states are a waste of resources. So this is also, these things are created as, if you remember what Woloshenko called the 5 leper fingers or something. These are all waste pipes. So normally, I remember sometime I had an uncle who was the chairman of a local government. He said when they go for ALGOM meeting, the Lagos Island government, the Lagos Island local government, which by every means is richer than most states, used to even pay their hotel for all other local government chairmen. So when you look at a local government like my local government, Umuahia South, what is the viability of that as a local government? What markets do they have? So can they, even without corruption, can they comfortably sustain themselves as a local government? Can what they get from the federal government be able to do a major 3 roads, build market, pay school salaries of teachers? So these are the things we need to look at. Some of these states are not viable, and it translates to the local government. So in as much as we're trying to bring government closer to the people, we shouldn't bring rubbish closer to the people. It's better, I think, in my opinion, it's better that in a state like Abia State that will have 10 local government that is functional than having 17 that is not functional.
Okay, Barrister, I'm going to come back to you. Chimezie, I'm going to let you jump in here. Chimezie, would you want to say a word? Or you just want to listen? Can you unmute yourself? Hello, can you unmute yourself?
Okay.
Hello, Chimezie, I'm just going to ask you because I can hear you. You've been here and you followed us passionately, so it's good to bring you into the show because I was going to ask that question because I read an article by Dr. Alex Oti day before yesterday where he questioned if we need all these local governments at all. Do we really need all these local governments? In your opinion, do you think that the local governments should have autonomy from the state governments? Because as far as I know, the state government, the local governments are like, I call them the backyard, like your back garden where you go and pluck tomato or pluck onions or pluck whatever you want or pepper. Anytime you just, spending money for the girls for things like that. Do you believe that the local government should have autonomy from the state government, to stop the control from the governors from, pilfering from the pockets of the local governments?
Okay, good evening now.
Good evening, yeah.
For me, I believe the best form of governance is at the local level. The local government should have autonomy. They should be able to identify, map out, and manage things within their purview. That is where the government should start. If you have a system that does not recognize the people at the baseline, how do you manage? Then why do you, as a politician, go around to run around the wards in the local government? I'm from Abia State. I'm from Isukwata. Abia State has about Abia State
17.
has 17 local governments.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have, I think, a total of 10 wards in Isukwata local government that have about 184 units. You understand? So for me, if you see politicians jostling around for the wards to get the soul of the wards, that means the humans within those places needs to be properly governed and give the governance to them. They will do better than this thing you centralize it in the state and at the federal level. For me, the problem we have is we don't have database. We don't even know what we have. 774 local government is okay. But the thing is that there is no sincerity in management. Do you understand? People are just after embezzling money and starting the funds away where they cannot use them until they die. So the truth is that governance, if it's for the people, take government closer to the people. And what the local government structure is supposed to do is keep governance within the people because they know who is who. Understand? So at that level, when governance is retained there, then other things can be done at other several levels. You imagine the primary school, which is a fundamental point in education of, for young generations. You go to school, community secondary school, community primary school, nothing is there. Students going to school without roof over their head, without chairs, and you want the students to compete globally in the world. If the local government is autonomous, they should be able to handle and match counterpartly with those ones abroad in the West. So for me, I am all for local government autonomy. Then the issue of we having their money directly to them, where they say no local government should spend more than 500,000 naira per day, it is good. It's a good practice. But the problem we have is that the recycled governors who go to the Senate to make these laws will always find a way to circumvent it.
Yes.
They might award contracts to themselves there and go back to pick this money. So what we need to do is let local government be given the autonomy, but we should have framework for monitoring the activities of this autonomy. Then we should scrap state independent electoral commission. There is no need for them. They should be merged into federal system, because if you do not have a good selection process, you still have those people very loyal to the governor that the governor will handpick and put them there. Then the cost of elections are expensive. Then another thing is that our people are even blind because we have a lot of uneducated people at the local government, and they are the ones that constitute this nuisance. I had an experience with a friend that ran for an election. He spent money, and after so much, he said, our people deserve the government they get. Our people are so stupid and so myopic. They prefer to take 500 naira and sell their rights. So for me, I subscribe to local government autonomy, but the process to drive the people or selection or election of people needs to be amended. That's my own take.
That's some very wonderful contribution. Yeah, Chris, I'm going to come to you. Chimezie made some very, very important points here. He used some words that I wouldn't have used. Recycled. I call them retirement. I see I see them as they go to the Senate to retire. Maybe sometimes doze off, sleep off. When sessions plenary sessions are going on. But Chris, Chimezie spoke about autonomy of the local government. But some schools of thought are arguing that this multiplicity of local governments that cannot generate their own revenue. Like I'm from Isialangwa North local government, and I don't see where, apart from the money, the normal practice of going to share oil money from Abuja, I don't see where revenue, apart from a motor park at the express, the Isialangwa Junction going to Aba, I don't see any other source of revenue that will accrue to the local government. So do you believe that these local governments are still relevant, or do they need to be scrapped? Personally, I believe that their money should be allowed to come to them for them to manage it, and they can do at least one or two things with it. But do you still believe that these local governments are viable, or do they need to be merged, or do they need to be restructured? Because the local government chairman has his own deputy. He collects 2 million a month, 2.5 million. The deputy collects 2 million. The head of service collects money. The chairman has a PA. The PA has an APA. The deputy chairman has a PA. The councillors, we have all these houses, duplicity of houses, making what laws I don't know. So do you believe that these local government systems, like Abia, a small state of less than 3 million people, we have 17 local governments, 17 houses of assembly, 34 chairman and local government chairman, and then maybe about 100 or more, maybe say about 17 times 10, about 200 members of councillors. So the money that get received, just enter into their pockets with the pockets of their aides. Do you still believe that this system is viable?
Thank you again, AK. And I must say, Chimeze, you made some very, very good points. Stanley, also when you were talking, you see, again, it just comes back to the Nigerian problem.
Yes.
If we look at governance, we just want governance. We want a situation where, I'm from Ahazumbise in Imo State, yeah? I want a situation where my father will not drive up to 20 minutes to go and sort out a document he needs in the village. Mm-hmm. That is when government is close to the people. Mm-hmm. If I take what you're saying, AK, because I am from Ahazumbise and my father needs to sort out some documents, he would have to drive to Owerri. Now, if I want to get a passport from Imo State, from Ahazum to Owerri, you go to where they do passports, you realize that because the whole of Imo State is coming to that particular passport office or immigration office in Owerri, you have close to 2,000 people every day there queuing to get passports. I mean, that's a federal thing. So what I'm saying is, yes, we still need local governments. Yes, we still need these people who are going to run them. The other bit of it is they have to be absolutely independent, just like the states are. When they are independent and they have a limited source of income, where they cannot, if for example, you are told that the salary of a councillor or the salary of a local government chairman is X amount of money, and their salaries are being paid from the federal, and they know the amount of people who are in those positions. So a certain amount of money is given for overhead. Then they have also projects that they may have created budgets for. And the federal government who is giving the money might say, well, we can give you only 20% of your annual budget. So look for a way to make up for 80% of it. So the people who run this local government can at that point start being useful to the people. They start thinking of ways to generate income within the local government. And when they do the work and generate this income, no state governor can come into their area and be their god, because they are actually working to generate income. And generation of income is not like, in the case of Nigeria, again, like I said, if we go back to the general problem Nigeria has, for you to generate income, you also have to put in the modalities to generate that income. If you don't have a market, for example, how do you get taxes from the market women or the man who has a store? So again, when there is no system, and like Eninia said earlier on, Eninia was talking about the Constitution. The Constitution is there, but there's nobody following it. And there's this article I read the other day that says there's a lacuna, between there's no specific prescription on how local governments are supposed to be run. And this is because with time, we have had different prescriptions. When this committee sits, they create a prescription, the other one comes, they change it. So nobody knows how local governments are supposed to be run. So it ends up in the hands of a governor who uses them as his piggy bank or control them. But what are you controlling in Ahaya Zumbise? We don't have revenue generating stuff in Ahaya Zumbise. So what are you controlling? You're just controlling political power. You're controlling an election. You want a situation where when you're going for your second term, you are the person who gets all the vote from Ahaya Zumbise or from Isialangwa. So again, it is Nigeria's problem. And this local one we're talking about is as a result of us not having a federal, a reasonable federal government. Because if the federal government knew what they were doing and they want to govern a country, they would sort out local government, because that is when my uncle in the village would know that Buhari is working. It is only when he goes to Aforu, where the local government is, and things work for him. So what I'm saying in essence is, we can start sorting ourselves from the federal before we get to the local government, or we can start sorting ourselves from the local government to go to the federal. But again, the independence of the local government, if they are independent without having the resources to run their local government, we're just wasting our time.
So what you mean, Dr. Chris, because I'm getting a uniformity of thought here, that the local government should be autonomous, because
Yes.
because the way laws, what you're saying here, if you've done any environmental analysis about Nigeria, if you're doing a macro environmental analysis, the external environment analysis, one of the things that comes to bear to you is that Nigeria has one of the best laws in the world. We have a legal system. We have laws that work.
We don't.
No,
Laws are as good as the people who implement them. We don't.
No, what I mean, we have written laws. Like if you look at the functions of the local government,
they are written. They are not laws. They are useful only when they are implemented.
Yeah,
that's why I said they are as good as their implementation.
Yeah, but they are not enforced, so that's the problem. So because we don't have enforcement of laws in Nigeria, the legal system has a kind of been, from what we see in Nigeria now, the cases that are being treated, you could see things, you could see one judgment, like there was a judgment, was in Kano State today, and if you go to Lagos State, that same case has another judgment. So
that's what I'm telling you. So we don't really have those laws. Like we're talking about the Constitution that doesn't have a prescription on how local governments are being run. Yeah, so then you see that the local government that's being run in Lagos State is different from the local government that is being run in Kano.
Yeah, so the point I was trying to make is that we all are believing here that the local government should be autonomous. So Stanley, if I can just jump back to you now, Stanley, do you believe that the local government, because all we are discussing here, we're not discussing politics here. We are discussing the functionality, the efficacy of the local government system, how it has been abused by the governors, and how that has made it impossible for the grassroots to get development. Like my community, we don't have so many communities in Isialangwa, local government, Isialangwa North, local government. Stanley, you and I come from the same community. But you know that in my community, there is no single presence of government. And one of the reasons why they established the local government system was for development to draw nearer to us. So Stanley, do you believe that these local governments that just depend on allocation from the federal government, that they should be allowed to continue, or that they should be, yeah, we've agreed on that they should be autonomous, but do they need to be merged? Do they need to be restructured?
Yeah, there is a very key point that Chimezie and Chris made, which I will still rely on. My answer to your question is yes, we still need local government, but the way it is operating at the moment, the operating model at the moment is not working. So what do? We need to revamp it completely. We need to revamp the setup. And here again, we have to go back to where the problem lies. Independency of local authority. You cannot function by relying on the states. So if you continue to rely on the state, it becomes an issue. There are a few points I made here. I said the problem, one of the major problems is that Nigerians need to understand their civic responsibility and also understand that those in authority must be held to an account. That's not happening. You know, when you see some rogues that stole from us collective wealth and people are calling them honorable, what is honorable about them? So that's where we need to start. We need to start asking questions. You know, when something happened in this country, I write to my MP to ask him what is your stand about this issue? Because I want to know, and I will get a response. We need to start going to those councillors for that one. Then the other one is there's no opposition. If there are opposition in government, then you can hold them to an account, because in Nigeria it's kind of one party system, both in local authority and state. So if, let me say, there's an AD or APC or whatever party in the local authority, they can hold the local government chairman accountable, say, what are you doing about this? Then they can sort it out. But once the state is in control, it's only going to be one party system.
So who is going to hold them, into account or accountable? Because we know, you see, one of the reasons why I want us to discuss these things, or one of the reasons why I decided to be doing things, get intellectuals to come and do things like this, is because I want to create sensitization. One of the points Chimezie made here earlier on was that our people are naive. I don't really blame our people. I don't really blame our people. Who is going to hold these guys responsible?
You can only hold them to an account if there is election, not selection. If there's election which is held from the central, because all I see in Nigeria, from presidential to local council, is selection. There's no election. And we have to be sincere to ourselves. We know the result before the result comes out. If you are serious, we have to go back to the drawing board, which is first the constitution, so that the INEC or whatever it's called need to give power from central to elect people from local, so that they will be independent of the state, the way the National Assembly is. Then the other point I made here, we need to have an external body that need to monitor what these people are doing. We don't have anybody monitoring anybody in Nigeria. Everybody is government to themselves, which is wrong. There's no.
If you're talking about monitoring, you could see what happened in NDDC. NDDC probe the other day. The NDDC probe the other day, where somebody was being asked to turn off his mic. So
because there's nothing like separation of power.
Yes.
Which is another thing which it can take us forever to discuss. If there are separation of power, you see here when Boris Johnson went to the parliament to lock parliament because he wanted to pass the vote for Brexit, and somebody took him to court and shut him down, and he was asked to reconvene. That can never happen in Nigeria, because here we have separation of power. So when people are hailing honorable this, they are stealing your money. Is our collective word. There's nothing honorable about them. They are rogue and thief. Call them what they are. So we need to make sure that people know their rights, because people, they don't know their rights. Yeah, okay. You can get up.
I think.
Sorry, Barrister Engineer. Chimezie, you'll be next. Barrister Engineer, you started off this point because this is an interesting point. A point about the number or the size of the local government system. I've tried to explain it that we have. I've tried to explain it that we have multiplicity of. I've come from Isialangba, not local government. And my small local government will have like 10 or 12 or 13 councillors, a chairman and a deputy chairman, and all these guys have 8. My PA. I see people writing for chairman. I'm the PA, I'm this. And this doesn't allow, even when the little money comes, it doesn't allow it to even reach the people. Do you believe that this same structure of, the size of local governments need to be kept, or do we need to restructure them? And again, that's number one question for you. Then two, as a lawyer from a legal perspective, we can't be saying all these beautiful things here, but if the legal system does not support all these things that we are saying here, how can we try to work to improve things, even based on the legal system we have at the moment?
Yeah, thank you, Eke. This is the reason why sometimes some of us are talking about structuring. The country is due to the structure. Okay?
Sorry, can you mute your microphone if you're not okay, go ahead, Barrister.
Yeah, so the country is due for restructuring. And when we talk about restructuring, we're not just talking about movement of the north, the south, and all that. Now, when I'm talking about restructuring, especially as it concerns the local government, like the civil service, we need to restructure the civil service. So when we say restructure the civil service, we also need to restructure the local government. If we're going to have a chairman and a deputy chairman, and we're going to have 10 councillors, and we're going to have head of service, this is duplicating everything in Abuja as duplicated by the state, and we're duplicating it at the local government level. We need to know what we actually need at the local government level. Okay? Very understandable that every ward needs a representative at the local government. And this is why I am saying, I think, in my opinion, that we don't need as many local governments as we have. I understand what Chris and the other of my friends said, that the government needs to be closer home. Chris was talking about his father being able to go to a local government as close as 20 minutes to him. But at what price? At what cost? His father was able to do that when Mbise as a whole was a local government. I believe so. What have we gained by, I come from what used to be Ikuano Umuaha local government. So in 1976, when they were doing, because I read some of it from my father's files. He was the divisional council chairman. That's what they used to call them then. In 1976, when they did the local government reforms. So what have we gained by splitting that Ikuano Umuaha local government into Umuaha South, Umuaha North, Ikuano, and I think so 4 local governments out of it now. So we've duplicated into 4 places. And this is the same Umuaha. Mind you, these 4 local governments, they still have one market, which is Umuaha market, okay? Now, the local government, it's not like the local governments have been able to build internal roads. We've not achieved that. They've not been able to build more schools. We've not achieved that. They've not been able to build health centers. They've not been able to pay teachers. So we have not achieved anything by creating these 4 local governments. Rather, what we have achieved is to have 10 councillors in 4 places, 4 chairmen in different places, 4 vice chairmen, 4 PAs, routine staff. And then another thing there, why I talk about restructuring the local government, the issue of ghost workers. You know, I'm saying this from experience. I've spoken to chairmen. I know the problem. Some of them have people who are employed in the local government that does nothing. Some local governments don't even have a kitchen, but they employ cooks. Some of them have 3 cars and they have 13 drivers. And these are all, because that's why I say it's a chain. So a commissioner will write something on the back of his card and send to give to his brother to take to a local government chairman to give him a job as a driver, where he will be paid salaries, and they will oblige. So this is a chain. But the most important part of it is that the question we need to ask is the local government, most of it as it is, are they viable? What have we achieved by splitting of these local governments? What have we achieved? Have we achieved anything other than that the people now go a shorter distance to the local government head office? Other than it's now a lot easier for politicians to be able to rig elections. Other than politicians being able to now have, some of them have local governments to themselves. So in Abia State, you can say, oh, this local government, this local government is for this local government, this local government, Ojozonjia. You know, these are things that are, these are what we have done. That's at the level we are. So we are talking about local government as private business.
Well, engineer, if I may just, make a point.
Yeah, Eke, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Can you just let Mr. Obewe, because he should be part of the show, but I think he's been struggling.
Can I make a comment now?
Yeah, just let him just jump in. Yeah, Obewe, can you jump in, please? Yes. Obewe, I'm going to ask you this question because you've missed part of the show. We started off with looking at the entire structure of the local government system in Nigeria, and you know what we're discussing today. We're looking at the efficacy of the local government for its intended purpose. Do you still believe? We'll fast forward the discussion. Do you believe? I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Do you believe that the local government system is doing what it was created to do? Number 2, do you believe that the governors, that the local government system or the local government should still be under the control of the state governments? And do you believe that the number of local governments we have in the country, or for example, in our state, Abia, that we still need all these numbers of local governments? So first question is, the local governments, are they still fit for purpose? Number 2, should they be autonomous? Number 3, considering the size of PAs, SAs, number of chairmen, number of councillors, do you still believe we need these local governments?
First of all, let me apologize. I've been struggling with my network, but now I think...
No, you're in Nigeria, better. So you don't need to. It's part of being in Nigeria. We understand.
I think that if you look at the local government system, I don't know how much that has been said, but I need to lay some foundation.
Yeah.
If you look at the First Republic, the local government worked better because we practice parliamentary system where a group of councillors are elected. Then on their own, they elect who becomes their chairman. So the powers were almost equal. So from there, they choose Chancellor for health and education and all that, and it works perfectly. Somehow there are constitutional lacunas why we had the chapter 7 of the 2 tiers of government, the federal government and the state. Then he added which is the federal capital territory. But it did not attach the local government to the tiers of government. It became a problem. The governors based all their arguments on that local government has become a subset of the state, which is wrong. I think that the local government as it is, whether there are many or not, can be functional. there are certain ingredients that are missing. First of all, what is the role of the local government? The local government is the first level of leadership recruitment process. People are tested as councillors, as chairmen, before they now start looking at State House of Assembly, the National Assembly, governor, and all that, whether you are contesting president. That's one of it. I'm now telling you some of the unseen functions of the local government. You itemize building of school, road. The Constitution made a very critical point about the local government. It said the local government must be involved in the economic planning of any state. So it means that the local government is supposed to have a planning board, because in actual definition, there is no place that is a state. The state is a conglomerate of many local governments. So there is no place called a state. So the local government at the most vital level at which planning can start. Then when you aggregate it, it comes to a state and transforms to development at the state level. So the critical role of the local government, the problem is that the policy holders, we have problem with our recruitment process, where you have a talk becoming a councillor, a chairman tomorrow, you have a talk becoming a member. Our leadership recruitment process have not been able to throw up people who are seasoned experts in the affairs of governance in Nigeria. And you can look at, I can give you an instance of where the local government has produced. Don't forget that the present governor of Rivers State was a councillor in a ward in Obiakpo, later became a chairman of Obiakpo local government. And if you look at his style of leadership, he is devoid of what we call today political godfather, because he's a grounded grassroots man. So when you bypass the local government in your leadership recruitment process, you will now be falling on this trap of godfathers, where you are giving state to manage and all the resources of state are kept on the table and shared. And that's what we have today. So whether the local government is important, it is very important. We have derailed in the management, no doubt about it. I don't think there's any argument about all of us are certain about that. But there are a lot of things we can do. But it's not to say that we should throw away the betting water with the baby. No. The local government, by creation, by the formers of local government, made it to be that one that is closest to the people. There are citizens that will not be able to see their governor until the day they die. There are citizens who will not be able to see their president before they die. But councillors and chairmen are chosen from among people. Their houses are not very far away from the office. So it means that they are closest to the people to be held accountable. We have turned you will see somebody from a local government in Nongwa who spends the whole of his time in Umuahia town, and you'll be asking, what is he doing there? Because Umuahia is nowhere near where he's supposed to be governing. That's how we have degraded it. Now, the constitution that puts a joint account between the local government and the states, there was a reason behind that. It was intended to allow the state give 10% of its internally generated revenue to the local government. The local government will now combine that 10% with the federal allocation transferred to them for them to have enough money, because one of the discussants has talked about not being viable. So the second question to ask when it comes to revenue, whether the local governments are viable or not, is where are the resources? As I said, there is no place called a state. The resources of any state comes from local government. And we have examples of a few local governments in Nigeria that are working. There are few, there are not much. There are few. So I think that the major issue, you have exonerated the citizen, but I think that in the local government menace in Nigeria, the citizens are 100% accountable. You must hold them to account. We have not had people who are active citizens. We have politicians. If you do the primary to the general election, it doesn't exceed 6 months. What it means is that you can be a politician for just 6 months, and the remaining 3.5 years, you use it to be active citizen. So, but that has not been so in Nigeria. You have people who are politicians, they're either APC, PDP, or ABGA, for 4 years, 48 months. They do nothing. So when they talk, the government of the day sees them as politicians. So, but if you have citizens who ask the right questions, you put the blame on citizens, because when you sit on the table, you cannot deny the fact that most of these citizens have interaction with these politicians that we are talking about. What are on the tables for discussion at every meeting point?
Mr. Bewe, you would understand that the political class has actually used hunger, poverty as a tool to hypnotize our citizens. That's not something you need to be aware of. That's number one. Number two, again, part of why we are doing, I had a chat with you the day before yesterday, and I've said it in this show again. Why we are doing this show is that we are not going to solve the problem here. We can come up with solutions. You know, it's not binding on anyone. But what we want to let people get from here is to understand the functions of a local government. That a local government is not there. It's not just a place where people turn up on 25th of the month and collect salary and walk away. Or it's not a place where people just come maybe once in a while. It's not a place for the government, it's for the council. And we also want to make them to understand, like you just rightly pointed out, that the councillor works for you. My councillor solves a problem for me. If I have a problem now where I live, I go to my councillor's office, I have an appointment with him, I tell him my problem, and she or he must do whatever she has to do to solve that my problem. And this is why we are doing this, to get our people to know that you have rights. You cannot imagine a guy in Nigeria, for example, I'm not going to cut you short, but I'm just jumping in. A guy in Nigeria becomes a councillor today. The next few days, he starts building a house. He had no car, no motorcycle. He started building a house, he started riding cars, and when his own people who he is working for sees him or see him, they start honorable. They start going to beg him for alms. This is the mindset we need to change. So I'm going to let you continue. Our people need to understand that these people work for them and that they are not slaves to them. It's like we lost. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hello. Okay, we're going to, Chimeze, you wanted to jump in, you wanted to say something. Chimeze, can you unmute yourself and jump in there while we're waiting for Mr. Lawrence?
Good evening once again.
Yeah, go ahead. We're listening. Now. Yeah, we're listening to you.
Good evening now. Okay. Just like we talk about the local government system, and Obewe was trying to make clarification on assertion. The truth is that if you look at the system now, the way our citizens are, our citizens don't even know what to demand. And it is this simple at the grassroots, where these politicians jostle for the life and strength of the vote, that they keep in perpetual poverty. The people there do not differentiate between the right and the wrong. Since 1999 to date, I've come to understand that we don't have a political party in this country. What we just have is collections of names, PDP, APC, what have you, as a vehicle to power. A vehicle to power, when you get there, you jump out, you jump in and start doing what you want to do. And the masses that cost your elections will now become like servants to the person they voted, becomes a leader. You understand? Imagine people cannot even assess who they voted for. Look at through the run-up of the elections. Those politicians that used to block everywhere, barricaded, that you don't even have access to their gate. They throw their gates wide open, they cook rice, people come to eat with them, they also try to eat with people. So the problem is our youth, who have always been the tool for doing these things, have not really sat back to ask themselves, what is in this for us? Democracy is supposed to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people. You understand? Irrespective of the fact that the processes are not right, but the people still have that strength to be able to determine who rules them. So we've not really been able to get it right, because we have this I don't care people. Sometimes they will tell you in Igbo language, or that they say, laịla edu ha ka aga mepụrụ ha vault ka ha ga vụrụ ego onye narị ego nke o ji nye vote. You understand? The time begin to understand that we are mortgaging our future, we are mortgaging the life of our unborn generation. That's the problem. Lawrence actually said that there is no place that is called the state. The state is an aggregation of the local government. The local government is an aggregation of the wards and the units put together to form the local government. The local government is just a geographical location of people. You understand? So when you talk about it is not true. Some local government have areas where they pack sand, tickets, levies, and rents are collected from those things. So the problem is we have not been able to call what is within our purview something. The Igbo people said, "Nko de lambalegere mbani." So the interpretation is this: the firewood within a community is what those community people used to cook. You understand? So therefore, each local government or each region is viable according to its needs. What we need to do is to begin to set up a framework whereby what each local government gets is known to the public, is known to the masses, is known to the people. Then we begin to aggregate our leadership or our structure in such a way that we'll be able to manage resources within our purview. If we have a framework that a local government is supposed to have one local government chairman, one vice, maybe one PA, another PA, we'll know that it's a framework that for this is what is supposed to be done. We have civil service. What is there or what is wrong with the civil service system structuring salary structure for local government chairman, local government, for every elective position? So the truth is we don't have a system. We don't have a standard operating philosophy. We don't have a standard operating procedure to be able to say that this is what is due. A local government is unit. It has to so and so, and all those things are put in place. By the time we
I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump in here. Dr. Chris, we've touched on something very important here because we're not going to solve all the problems. We're going to have another session where we're going to discuss how to solve these problems. But for the immediate, for today, I am personally concerned that prior to Buhari signing or coming up with these new instructions that when the allocations of the LGA come, what you had was I gathered this from local government chairmen and their aides. I'm not just quoting things. What you have is that when the allocation comes like 150 million, for example, now Obiungwa local government, for example, I'm not saying that's what it is, maybe 200 million for Obiungwa. The governor gives the local government chairman 2.5 million, gives his vice 2 million, gives the head of service 1 million, and then tell them to bring back. I'm not saying this is Sisialangwa, is this other state. I'm just saying hypothetically. Then they carry the remainder as cash and return to the governor, or maybe through one of his trusted aides. This has been going on, or this was going on before Buhari came in and said, no, you can't do this again. But they are still finding ways to make sure that the same. Then those chairmen, one of them told me that maybe some months they are giving 10 million to grassroots, or they are giving 5 million to just do extra. Then Buhari now said, okay, you don't touch any money there until you pay salaries. Then what the governors still do, they still find ways around to get that money back by now awarding fictitious contracts, just like we've heard here. How do we get our people to understand that the governors should not be doing this? How do we get the governors to get their hands off the allocations of the local government? Because what I believe is that if a local government chairman is allowed to manage these resources, he will be able to, within his tenure of 4 years, if an election is conducted, he will be able to build at least 10 kilometers of road. And the next LGA chairman comes in and does exactly the same thing. How do we get the governors to get their hands off the pockets of the LGAs?
Yeah, thank you again, Eke. I'll just say this. We are still doing, there was a time we talked about this before, you cannot be dealing with the symptoms of an ill health by just trying to manage the symptoms, because the ill health would definitely kill you if you're just managing the symptoms. You know, and the symptoms of bad governance in Nigeria is what you see in local government governance. So a human body that has the brain completely dead, a dead brain, that human body is useless. You're just supporting it. So because of that, whatever prescription we give for the local government is not going to help local government if at the federal level they have not been sorted, if the federal level has not been sorted. Because like somebody said earlier on, that the local government is an aggregation that creates the state. And the states are, the 36 states in Nigeria makes the federal. So without a local government, you don't have a state. And that's my understanding. So if you want to sort the system, you have to sort the federal. And it goes back to when Eninia talked about the Constitution. The Constitution has not given us a prescription of how to manage the local government. It has just given us the specific things the local governments can do. And if we work, if we research and say, for example, the local government is supposed to do X, Y, Z, and we can cost those things, like Lawrence said earlier on, that these local governments that make up a state, they can cost what, or they can create budgets of what they need in their various local governments. They produce a budget that can be can be verified. Then you see that the management of the local government can function well, especially when you have like a program, when you have a budgeted program. So when we talk about the leadership, you know, who are those people running the local government? It's just the same thing like who are those people running our federal government? Because we have a leadership, generating system that doesn't make any sense. You would see somebody running the local government who because the uncle or the sister is married to the governor, he runs a local government. He doesn't have the capacity to even run his family, not to talk about a local government.
No, Chris, what I'm saying is, you see, we only have 3 years now or 2.5 years for this present system to end, or this present tenure of politicians to end. And what I want to achieve with this is that I want a situation whereby the governors are forced, in my opinion, to get their hands off because what I've seen happen or happening is that each time we discuss these things or we write things on social media, you see a reaction from them. It generates a reaction from them, and you see them making some subtle changes. So it is important that we come up with.
Let me come
it's
in
not going to be long term.
May I find out, or from Lawrence? Maybe Lawrence might answer this. Yeah.
Yes.
The question is.
Okay.
The question is does the Constitution at the moment, as amended at the moment, give the local government that autonomy? And if it gives the local government that autonomy, how do they get their money off the federal government? And if they get this money, what are the, what happens if that money goes back to the state government? Is there no way a local government chairman can say, well, the money that I got from the federal government has gone back to the state, which is illegal if the Constitution gives them that right? So,
yeah,
but
but remember
again,
you're talking about a sole administrator appointed by the state government.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
That's the major
the
problem.
leadership process is actually just a mess. So
Okay, Lawrence, can you jump in?
Yes. Okay. Let me. The problem is a little complicated. But there are avenues for people to intervene, and I like what we are doing because it's coming very timely, and I'll tell you why. We have tried to push for constitutional amendment. This is the third time. The first one was 2012, 2013. This local government was explicitly separated from states. But you know that for constitutional amendment to stand, you must have concurrence. When we went to the state houses of assembly, I was working with a DFI, the British Department for International Development, funded program then. We funded the state houses of assembly, National Assembly, to make sure that this constitutional amendment happened. It happened at the National Assembly. But when we went around the 36 local governments, 36 states in Nigeria for concurrence, we lost the vote by 2. Because you needed 24 states to say yes to it before it will pass, but we were able to get 22. That was in 2013. Now it came up again in 2012. In 2017. Again, we lost by 7 this time, 7 states. I think we got about 17 states voting yes. The other ones voted no. But one state abstained. And let me tell you, that's where what we are doing today is coming very handy. That state that abstained from voting was Kaduna State. On the day that we are going to vote, we occupied the State House of Assembly. Citizens, it's not political parties. We occupied the State House of Assembly. We engaged them in tweet chats. We went to their Facebook and told them that any of them that voted no for that amendment, that will make sure that he doesn't return. So we stayed with them for more than 4 hours. What they did was to step it down. So when we spoke to the Speaker of the House of Assembly, he said that they had stepped it down and they are only waiting for other states. That if Kaduna is the only state left for that the constitutional amendment to pass through, that they will vote it yes. That's the power of citizenship. And that's why I told you that what is happening across Nigeria is citizens, is not anybody. Now, let me explain the NFIU, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit guideline for local government. Prior to now, the joint account was a transactional account. What does it mean to be a transactional account? Once money enters there, the state governor can sign a check of 200 billion and go and withdraw it from that joint account. And it will be the money of the local government for a very long time. When Buhari came with the NFIU guideline, they now made that joint account a transitional account. You can no longer draw a check on the joint account. The money must first of all go to the local government before any money can be drawn. That was where it became a problem for state governors. For those that had...
Oh, no. You see, this is the challenge we have with Nigeria. Okay, but staying there, while we're waiting for Lawrence to come back, because we want, one of my own challenge as a person...
chairman. It became easier for them.
We've lost him again. We're in Nigeria. He's in Nigeria, so this is one of the characteristics of Nigeria. Anyways, so Barrister Wusu, like we rightly said, my main concern is that while I was growing up, like I said, my parents used to collect their pension.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Lawrence. Your network is not enough. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the second restriction is that you can only withdraw a total sum of 500,000 from the local government account in a day. So what that means is in a month of 30 days, you can not withdraw more than 50 million. So even at that, it left the local government, because some of them receive as much as 300 million, 400 million. So if you remove 15 million as cash withdrawal, it means that you still have a lot of money that you can use to do work. Every other money will now be in the form of payment of contractors. But again, especially for those with their interim chairman, interim management council, what they were doing was award fictitious contracts, sign checks, to the contractors withdraw and come out. But that is even better, because the EFCC was now mandated to track every payment made from the local government to the company that is going to. Then any suspicion on that.
Magus EFCC. Hello.
Yes. Okay. Then no, I don't know now. So, but the president, they boxed the president, effectively suspended. So that's where it is. Now, back to constitutional amendment. And we've done 2 trials and it has failed. Now there is another window. By next month, the next constitutional amendment will take off by September. I have been in a meeting with the Deputy Senate President. He's someone who's very passionate about separating local government from states. But that's not the bigger part of the issue. The issue is they have amended it twice. The state houses of assembly voted against them. And there has never been consequences on those members. So what we are doing now, this sensitization is now to mobilize citizens against the members of the state house of assembly. As the constitutional amendment is coming, so that whatever that is president Omo Agege, that he will make of what has transpired on 2 occasions where this constitutional amendment will go through and it will be voted against during the concurrence. So what we are doing now is now to stir up now or never. We and the state judiciary have been ground to build a framework for their operations. Because once you remove those 2 from the straps of the governors, you have weakened their power, even in voting for the local government autonomy. So what we are doing now is to mobilize. When we finish building the framework for them to operate, we would have reduced the power of the governor, because by the next electoral cycle, the governor's influence on the members of State House of Assembly would have whittled down. Now, a lot of them are still saying it. They are not understanding what's happening. As it is today, the state houses of assembly are supposed to do their separate budget and just attach to the executive budget for the governor to sign. The governor is no longer supposed to be, for instance, making provision for providing speakers or electronic voting machines in the legislative budget. So we are getting close. The journey is long. Our steps are slow, but we are getting. But the most important thing is to stir citizens to be ready for what is happening. A lot is happening, but the citizens are just not interested. That's what the problem is. I did a lot of mobilization. You have seen how many people that are on this program. So that's our major. The problem is the citizens, because once they are aware, as one of our guests said there, a bad father at home will be a bad president. A bad father at home will be a bad local government chairman. A bad father at home will be a bad anything. The office will only magnify his stupidity and his irresponsibility. So our job is to stir up the conversation, mobilize our citizens to know that, okay, these reforms are coming. What happened on these 2 occasions not happen again. That's my take.
Okay, that's brilliant to say, because Barrister, I'd like you to jump in here. We'll be rounding up very soon. Maybe we'll just talk once, and because we have to quite a while now. But Barrister, as a child growing up, I used to witness my own dad. My dad was a retired school teacher. Go to the local government to do their. I used to do their, what do you call it? Their check, their screening, and we used to have people we call Ndole school. People that used to come and look at our schools, check our teachers. They even get to the point of even checking our nails. Those guys, they come to school supervisors. They come to check how the schools are being run and things like that. And I like to emphasize to our viewers that these are the things that local governments do. And we used to have these guys, the local government, when I was growing up, if you go to Isialonga local government, we didn't have this north and south, whatever. You had graders, you had excavators, you had bulldozers that were used. You didn't go to hire them; they were there to work for us. But all of a sudden, all these things have disappeared. So how do we get the average Nigerian youth to understand that these guys are not working? One, the councillors, the local LGA chairman are not working, that they are not slaves to them, that they are working for them. Then number two, how do we, on the interim, before this constitutional amendment, how do we sensitize our youth, or how do we go about with this agitation to get the governors to hands off their hands from the local government accounts, and even allow them, if it's possible, 2 years or 3 years is enough, to conduct elections, to have democratically elected LGA chairman in position?
Yeah, thank you, Eke. The question should have been how and what should the local government do to keep the state government away from them?
Well, I'm not going to ask you that question, because the local government chairman, the one there, for example, in Abia State, the guy in Abia State, in my local government, is a guy that was appointed by a guy that was selected by the governor. So I don't know what he can do.
That's exactly the point. So we should be looking at what can the local government do to stop the state government from coming in. I like what Lawrence have been saying, the efforts they've made to get the government out. In the beginning of the program, I made mention of Algon. I don't know if that's the right name.
Yeah, Algon, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, I think so. They were very powerful then. I remember Algon sued the federal government on allocation, and they won, you know. But the problem now is that the people, the members of Algon now, if that organization still exists, is being appointed, not elected by the governors. And even when they're elected, they are kind of selected instead of elected. And now the state governments are very intelligent people, you know, criminals in Nigeria are very intelligent. So what they do, because they know that these local government chairmen are the only people that can push for a change. So they make their time very short. So they appoint you for 2 years. Within 2 years, they would have had like 3. They've been local government caretaker committee chairman that lasted 6 months. So I think it's going to be very difficult for a local government chairman to be able to, you know, the local government chairman in Nigeria to come together. I don't know if they have any umbrella now, and even if they do, it wouldn't be strong. Now, what they have to do is to go by way of court. And because court process is different from demonstration, is different from protest, is different from, you know, because there's continuity. So once a case has been instituted in the court, it keeps going. It will have to go under the name of Algon. So even if there's a change of leadership in Algon, the case continues. So that's where I don't know how the present people are doing it, but I think they have to do it in a way there has to be continuity. You know, because these present people can do demonstration today, and tomorrow they change the local government chairman. They can't continue. The new ones might be very loyal people, and then they will suffer a setback. And now the other thing, it's about will. It's about the will of the people. Like you rightly said, local government have been, right now, I don't think there's any local government that can even grade roads in the village because they don't even have the funds. The chairman don't even have enough money to steal.
Yeah.
So there's less money to steal. and they can't even try to do any project from the little one they need to steal. So the problem, like I said, is a chain. The people that will have to solve this problem will be the House of Assembly members. Some of them are in agreement with the state to loot the local government. Some of them get letters sent to local governments for some patronage. So they can't go against the governors. Now, some senators, the National Assembly, they also rely on the governor to deliver them in elections. So whenever this matter for local government comes to the National Assembly, the governors push on the senators, which
you mean the retired governors? Okay, you mean the senators? Okay.
Yeah, because these are most of them are retired governors, so they know the system,
and they still control things within their states. Yeah.
Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. During our campaign, in my manifesto, I said that what I would want to happen in the state is to have what we call, in the country, is to have what we call dedicated accounts, okay? Civil service salary dedicated account. Create it in every state. The national, the 36 states House of Assemblies will approve that. So it becomes a law. So what that means is that once the allocation from the allocation to the state from Abuja, they will deduct at source what should be used for salaries of civil servants. That is paid into a dedicated account that will be administered in the independent account. So that way, the governor cannot influence it, But the problem, somebody pointed out when we were having a meeting and said, the problem is that the state assembly might go against this because they are in the pocket of the governor. So you see, that's one thing Chris said there, which is right. It's the Nigerian problem. It's the Nigerian problem. So we have to, the local government, I mean, it's made up of members of the society. The National Assembly is made up of Nigerians, so the corruption is there. But we need leadership. But we will begin to put in people who are, when we have a government chairman who is strong enough to say, I know I'll be sacked, but I'm going to chase this matter. I'm going to pursue this matter. I'm not going to release this money. I'm going to write against this. I'm going to protest against this, until we begin to have people like that. But unfortunately, the governors will not put such people. You see what I mean? It's a chain,
Yeah. So, Okay, thank you, Barrister. I think it's a very, very difficult one here. So Stanley, jump in, then Chimezie, then Lawrence, you close us out. So, or Chris, I don't know if Chris is still here. So, Stanley, what do you think? What do you think that in the interim?
There's a lady here. She's not said something.
Yeah, we'll get her to say something. I'll get her to say something. She's my friend. I don't know if she wants to say anything. So, a very good, business owner that's really doing well. So, Stanley, we know the hands of the politicians are tied. These guys that have been selected. What do you think that in the interim? Because the next discussion will be, how do we now get this nailed to ensure that the governors, let's be blunt about it, that the governors get their hands off the pockets of the local government? How do we, in the interim, within the remaining 3 years, how do we ensure that the governors get their hands off the pockets of the local government so that the local government can work? And what is the position of what should the citizens be doing to support this process?
First of all, thank you for your question. First of all, is what you're doing, for people to know what is within their rights. Because some of us just believe once you get into office, the money that you are using to flex is yours, not the salary they pay, because one, it's not their salary, it's money they stole from everybody. It's a collective wealth. So we need to make sure that people understand that circumstances you are praising people on Facebook and writing nonsense because you have been given some little amount of money is from the collective world. So we need to start speaking up. We need to be bold to talk about what we need to get from the government. That's one. The other one is what Barrister made mention of. I don't know how they will be able to stand bold, especially those ones who are selected, because as I said earlier, it's going to be fire and hire. So if you don't dance to the tune of the person that have selected you to that position, then you'll get fired. And most of these guys, they don't have any career. Here, some of the counselors that work with me, some of them are lawyers, some of them have got their own business, and their salary is nothing to write them about. I think it's less than £2,000. So the money they get is not even that attractive. It's just the passion to give back to the community, because already they are well made. Some of the politicians we have back home, they have no career. Some are just picked up as a stooge to be there. So we need to make people understand that, look, government is by us. It's us, not those people you see there. So you need to start asking questions. Another thing we need to look into is also for those ones in office. I don't know how we're going to go about it, to have an office where you can be accessible. I can pick up a phone and call my counselor. I say, counselor, this is what I've noticed. There's a tree that fell on my road. Can you get the tree and woodlands team to come and remove it? And he or she will tell me this will get done. We don't know how to contact our councillors. We don't know how to contact our House Assembly member. There is no office or way of establishments of getting to these people. So we need to start having that conversation, asking those questions that is thought-provoking. Because if we keep doing all those honorable welcome chair, all this nonsense, we cannot hold them to account. They will keep doing what they're doing. And the way we see our area keep going backwards. I remember when you said, I remember growing up to see Caterpillar to Kualangwa. When we go home, we see the roads being graded during Christmas time. But those days are now in history. If I take my kids back home now, I don't think they want to revisit that place again. But this is an area that we had pride because of how it was, we had leadership in place. I think those days have gone, but we can get it back from what we are doing, because people, especially the ones born in early 90s, I don't think, because they've not seen good governance, they don't know what is their right and within their right. They need to start being told. I think government needs to start teaching people government from primary school so that they know their right and responsibility so that they can ask that question.
Thank you, Stanley. So Sandra, you've been with us all through the show. And Sandra, you're a young business person in Aba. We're not going to put you on the hot seat here. Sandra, can you unmute yourself? So Sandra, as a youth, we know that your business relies on your local council. Your business relies on your local council, providing roads for you, providing pipe-borne water for you, giving you basic amenities for your business to thrive. How do you think that we can get the governors to get their hands off the pockets of the local government so that the local governments will work for you? Sandra, you can unmute yourself and say some few words if you want to. You've not still unmuted yourself. Oh, no, sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Please can you come again? I didn't get your question. I was distracted.
Okay, no, as a young business owner who is into business, and you know that the local government should provide basic amenities for you to do your business, for your business to thrive. So how do you think we can get the local governments to work? How do you think that we can get the governors to get their hands off the pockets of the local government to ensure that the local governments work for you? And what do you think is the role of the youth in getting this done? You can answer anyone you want to answer. What do you think is the role of the youth in trying to get the local government to work for them?
Okay, first of all, the local government chairman, I think it's left for them to you people talked about autonomy actually, and I believe that they do not have that autonomy. And as far as I'm concerned, they were appointed by the governor, and it's not really, really easy to get the government or the governor to let go of them. Now, they are serving as puppets. That is just the gospel truth. They are puppets. Or the people in government, appointed people they can control.
Yeah.
And it takes passion. It takes a leader, a local government chairman that's got passion, a local government chairman that's got aspirations, things he wants to do for his constituency or the people he is leading, to disentangle himself from what should I say? What's this? To disentangle himself actually from this is what I'm looking for. I've forgotten, but to disentangle himself from the governor or from the people above him. Now, the thing there is they need to come to terms with the fact that they are leaders, with the fact that they are leading people, with the fact that we need them. They need to come to terms with the fact that being a local government chairman is not all about going there to make money, because that is just what they are in for. They are not there to serve us. They are there to make money. First of all, let people who are going to be there be autonomous. Let them be people who are not perfect. Let them be people who are not tied to the governor's apron strings, because these people are tired. Now, for me, for the roles of the youth, well, I always talk about the psychophantic aspect of youth. Like I told you the other day, I told you that the youth are hungry. Like we are hungry, and they are dangling carrots before our very presence. And normally, for a hungry person, the only thing you can think about is the stomach, the stomach infrastructure, how you can feed. And then when you see these men dangling these things before you, you do not have any other option than to grab it, unless you've got passion about how to grow and how to develop your wherever you are, your state as a whole. So now our role as youth is this. I've always asked us to be innovative, and I've always talked about, when the government doesn't take our welfare at heart, what we should do. We should set up things for ourselves. I always use myself as a kind of example. I know that all the things I've done and the things I've been doing, the government has never gotten themselves involved in any of them. And as a matter of fact, I can always come up to say the truth, no matter whose ass is going. I can always come up to say the truth, no matter how, people may not really want me to say it, because I am not tied to anybody. I am not answerable to anybody. I am only answerable to myself. Now, when we, the youth, have something doing, well, we are innovative enough to, to create employment for ourselves, don't we need to hold our leaders accountable for that? But in a situation where they do not consider, they do not take our welfare at heart, and then we have something doing, I think only then can we be able to stand up and hold them accountable, courageously, because at this time in particular, we are not relying on them for bread.
Okay, Sandra, thank you. You've made a genuine point here. The youth need to get themselves engaged, because only when you're engaged, why I'm able to say what I can say here, and many of my friends in Nigeria cannot say it, is because they are sycophants. They don't have anything doing. They are reliant on the government. So thank you for that wonderful contribution. So I'm going to end up with you, Lawrence, because it's been wonderful. Chimezie, I'm going to get you on the show the next time. Lawrence, what do you think in the interim? How do you think that we can, for the 3 years remaining or 2.5 years remaining, how do we get these governors to get their hands off the pockets of the local government, so that the government, at least the people at the grassroots, can breathe a sigh of relief? Lawrence, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.